And we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford. Interrupting my good friend Josh the Great Peterson as we're going live on air. It's Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching this. Truly appreciate everyone out there checking out all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you could like, share, subscribe today to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the latest PC Multiverse, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, the state of pro wrestling, and of course, everything that goes on here. And a big special shout out to all the radio stations around the world that play us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is the man indeed that you need to check out. All the happy hoarding that he does at the Happy Hoarder and happyhoardercollectibles.com. It is my good friend. It is Josh the Great Peterson. And Josh, apologies. I hit that magic button and like 20 seconds later, it goes off automatically. So I apologize for that. But I know with Assassin's Creed on the subject list today, you have got much to discuss as our AC expert.
Yeah, what I was in the process of saying was that I don't know if I'm an expert anymore because I never played Mirage and I'm still in the process of finishing the expansions on Valhalla. So I'm a little bit behind on the story there. So I got some catching up to do.
There's still a story there?
There's bits and pieces of one. And yeah.
I just gave it up for dead, like the X-Men series, Fast and Furious. I just figured that there's like whatever overarching narrative is just gone the way of the dodo.
You know what? Originally they said there's supposed to be like 10 games, and I feel like they've gone beyond that. I don't know how many games they've put out so far, but
well, more than that.
I feel like it's more than 10. So yeah, I don't. That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I feel like they're gonna if they're going to keep on keeping on, they're gonna have to wrap up the thing with like the Associates of Desmond here and move on to something new. But what do I know? I don't write the games. I just play them.
All right, so we will talk about the latest release of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Very curious that they actually debuted it now when in 3 weeks.
I wonder if it was like threat of trailer leakage. Remember, didn't that happen with the last one too?
Yeah, I think so. That's probably why they did. But yeah, just still kind of the timing and all would have been nice if they would have just let it flow as one of the major points of E3, not E3 coming up in 3 weeks. But okay, it is what it is. So we'll talk Assassin's Creed Shadows here in a second. Plus also as well, I want to hear Josh's take on X-Men 97 overall season 1. And if there's a future, and what should be the future for Marvel animation going forward. Lord of the Rings has a future, and Josh has something to say about it. Why they went in the direction that they're going in for the next Lord of the Rings film. And we'll talk about that coming up here in a second. Also, as well, Call of Duty looks like it will be on Games Pass. Is this going to be a big win for Xbox? And this may turn the tide in favor of Xbox in what has been a very rocky tenure so far in this generation. We'll talk about that coming up as well. Bridgerton season 3. I know Melinda and I didn't get a chance to talk about that, but we do have to go ahead and chat a little bit about Bridgerton, another hit season. I know that was one of our biggest episodes ever when we talked about Bridgerton season 1. So we're now up to season 3. So we talk about that. Plus a anniversary of a film I have called the benchmark and the creator of the modern action thriller. I'll tell you what that movie is coming up, and also as well what's going on with the box office right here on This Week on the Pop Culture Cosmos. But first, my friend, it is Assassin's Creed Shadows. So I ask you, my friend, Assassin's Creed Shadows was debuted by good friends at Ubisoft this past week, who I guess you could say is easing off a little bit on the yearly installments of Assassin's Creed, but not by much because it is still their major marquee franchise. And I remember way back when Assassin's Creed first started, I actually am looking at right now, Josh, a sealed copy of Assassin's Creed limited edition art book and strategy guide, still sealed. And I can't find it anywhere. So I'm thinking maybe I have a one-of-a-kind deal still that's out there. But your thoughts, my friend, on this Assassin's Creed series? In fact, this will be our Facing the Franchise, with the franchise of Assassin's Creed now on its umpteenth, like you said, over 10 iterations now. Assassin's Creed Shadows heads to feudal Japan. Are you okay with where this is headed for this series? Because again, the overarching narrative, I really have no idea what's still going on.
Yeah, so it's funny with Assassin's Creed because they've moved away from the yearly releases, but also it's kind of all Ubisoft has right now because they're bleeding money. I don't know if you've been following that story at all, but there's like rumors of them possibly selling out to another company. I don't remember who the company named was, but like their stocks are falling, their just the quality of their games keeps dropping, and they're kind of on the ropes here. So this Assassin's Creed game has to be a success for them. Otherwise, who knows? You know, we were talking about whether or not they're going to be able to finish any story or whatever story arc they're on. Who knows if we're going to be able to? Who knows if we're going to see more Assassin's Creed games in the future if things keep going the way that they are going. You know, Ubisoft's not the only company. You know, Sony and Microsoft, as we've discussed before, are laying people off and sales are going down. And Square talked about the other day about how Final Fantasy didn't reach its the
All the
expectations.
Final Fantasies that have come out lately.
Yeah, yep. So, anyways, I'm not surprised they moved towards Japan because that was something people have been talking about that for a while. Remember, like, or even before it was a conceptual thing, people have been like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was an Assassin's Creed game that took place in Japan, you know, and you played a samurai or a ronin or whatever,
Or a
and
ninja.
or a ninja, yeah, and you know, got to explore that period. And you know, lo and behold, we get this trailer, and there's a female protagonist. So I'm assuming you get to move. You don't get to choose. You know, they don't make the protagonist male or female. You're playing as the female, or you're playing as Yasuke, the African American samurai. I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to see, but it's interesting that they went with that time period because like Yasuke is a very controversial figure in the fact that a lot of some accounts say that he was a samurai, other accounts say that he wasn't actually a samurai. So there's a lot of myth that revolves around him. So I'm curious which direction, like historically, the game is going to go. But also, I think that there's a lot of potential there as you are I think the girl's a ninja, right? She's not a samurai. She's not a
I
samurai.
think it's I mean, that would fit right in with the assassin motif, which is for me shocking that they haven't approached it before.
Yeah, or an assassin. I don't know, one of the two. I don't think that she's a samurai. I think Yasuke is supposed to be the samurai
I
in the
think
game.
she is a ninja.
Okay.
To be
So
honest with you.
that would make sense to me. So that would create this whole element of, you know, kind of feed into the assassin theme. You're able to hang out in bushes and kind of do your silent assassinations. I think that the theme plays very well. You know, that being said, there's a lot of potential here, and the whole weather system. Do you see that? They're talking about how with the changing seasons, there's going to be different ways to assassinate people, and also you're going to have to be careful because enemies will be able to see like your footprints or, you know, whatever
More
season
ways that they can detect you.
Right, right. So, yeah, I'm definitely interested. I guess I think I got to do some catch up because I don't know where like I said, the modern story of that is going. But yeah, I'm excited, man. I mean, I'm definitely gonna play it. It looks cool. The trailer looks really neat, and I'm always a big fan of playing those. They said the map on this one is about the size of what Origins was, and I don't know if you remember Origins, but Origins was pretty massive. I don't know if it was as big as Odyssey, but Origins was pretty big. So you know, could be fun. Could be fun, or it could just be you know, like Ghost of Tsushima all over again. So I don't know. But I will play it. I will give it a try. I will pick it up and we will talk more about it when it comes out and I could give you my actual opinion. But what about you? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you know me, I broke off from the Assassin's Creed series a long time ago. and I really thought they did it well with Black Flag. I
Yeah,
really
Black
thought,
Ops. Yep.
yeah, and just it's just so hard for me to get back into it, but this could be something that might pique my interest. I'm going to follow you. I don't know if you're going to do any streaming of it, but I'll follow you and follow other players on it. I'm just not a first day pickup for me, but I could be interested in it. I could be interested in it. I
Okay.
could be this could be something where a time period where I'm interested. It's just that that overarching narrative. It's just been so loosely made and poorly made over the course of whatever how many iterations that there is now. I
Yeah.
mean, you talked about Valhalla, you talked about all Odyssey, you talked about all the different Assassin's Creeds that have come out over the years and how they're supposed to tie into each other because of what Desmond's, I guess, trip has taken him. My
Mhm.
God, and what a trip it has been for him. But yeah, it just does not seem like I want to get back into all of them or go back to it and play. But this one I could see myself possibly getting into as far as that period of time for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the period is interesting. Like, I don't think I would go back and play another Middle East variation of Assassin's Creed or another like colonial America iteration of Assassin's Creed. So I think that it's cool that they are making that jump into a completely different historical period of time, and it's one that is filled with so much fascination and lore and history there. So, and I think it's the right time to do that, right? Because there's a lot of games and shows and movies that have come out that have kind of piqued people's interest in that time period. So I think that this is a good time for them to release a game such as this.
So we want to hear your thoughts. Are you interested in Assassin's Creed Shadows? Are you looking forward to the next iteration of Assassin's Creed? And before we hit the break, my friend, I want to ask you this. And before I go ahead and give the special shout out at the end of the segment, your thoughts on the Assassin's Creed series as a whole, because you are our AC expert. I understand you have not played the last iteration of it, but you have played more than most. So your thoughts about the AC franchise over the course of this now, okay, stop me if you don't want me to say it, but 17 years now for this series.
Woo, buddy. Oh my gosh. Wow, that so I
Remember,
remember.
this came out in 2007, the
Oh my
best year
gosh.
ever for video
Yeah.
games.
I know I worked at Best Buy at the time because
I
I was
was
the
running my game store.
man, and that was just a few years before we connected at National University. So
Mm-hmm.
what a historical time period. No, I remember that game it was advertised as something completely different from what it was. Do you remember that? Like, you saw the
Yes.
trailers at E3, played the trailers, and you have to see Altair, right? And he was assassinating people. He has blade and he's hiding in bushes, not bushes, but the hay wagons and all that, and pulling people in. It looked like a really cool game. But then when you opened it, there's this modern element to it where you play as Desmond Miles, and it felt like you had been lied to in the advertising. I think we talked about this um not so long ago, but it felt like you were lied to in the advertisements for it because you thought it was just going to be like a historical game about hiding and killing people. But you had this modern mythos that was being developed alongside it. And I remember I put the game down for months and months. Like, I think I went back to it a year and a half later, and then I was like, "Oh, all right, this was okay." And I clearly a lot of people had the same opinion of it as I did, because it took 2.5 years for Assassin's Creed 2 to come out,
Mm-hmm.
and by that time, Assassin's Creed 2 was a lot better. A lot of the bugs were worked out. The protagonist was a lot more interesting in Assassin's Creed 2. Ezio Auditore had a lot more depth than Altair did, and then they did 3 spin-offs of that one, which I don't remember them. I remember running around Rome was pretty cool, but yeah. And then they jumped into what was next. They had Assassin's Creed 3, and then you had
Black Flag after that. I think that
Flag.
was Assassin's Creed 4 was Black Flag.
Yeah, and then Assassin's Creed 4 had a couple spin-offs, right? They had Assassin's Creed Rogue, and they had Freedom Cry. which was a really long.
They've been on so many platforms too, from the Vita to the Switch to
And we're still not. We don't have. I think Assassin's Creed 4 was the last numbered entry, so I wouldn't be surprised if further on down the line there's an Assassin's Creed 5. These like Valhalla and Origins and Odyssey. You're just kind of like side stories to whatever main story they're trying to tell, but there have been so many Assassin's Creed games, and like Origins, I remember was cool because that was the first foray into like the RPG mechanics. You had to level up your character, you leveled up your equipment, like you can make it stronger or just bust it up if you wanted to and use it for resources.
But is that part of the problem? Because you've already described so much in 17 years, whereas other IPs that are still, alive and existent have not been as proficient or as, I guess, busy as Assassin's Creed. Do you think that might be a bit? I mean, I know it was at one of the franchise. We were on the show at one time on the franchise talking about how we were fatiguing, or you were fatiguing on AC because it came out with so many yearly installments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, at that point with like Origins, no Origins, they lied. Remember, they were like, "Oh, we're done with the yearly installments," and then a year later, Origins comes out. So,
which was the one that was Unity was the one that was really bad as far as the glitches and all.
Assassin's Creed. Oh, you're right. I completely forgot about that. That was
with the eyes, because the skin models, the models of the actual bodies of the actual characters were gone, and all you got was the teeth and
Unity, and there's Syndicate before that. But so Unity was the first one on next gen consoles. So that was in Paris, not Paris. Maybe it was Paris. I don't know. You were France. I think maybe it was France. I don't remember. But that was the first one where they switched to a new engine, and there were so many people walking around on the map that it was having a hard time processing the information as it was accumulating. So you go and you'd glitch into walls, or people's faces would be all bugged out, or the game would just freeze at random times. Because remember, they tried to introduce the multiplayer mechanic into that. Yep. So you go and find these multiplayer matches, and you go in, and you basically, try to assassinate the other team. But for some reason they pulled that out and did not go back to that. So I don't know what the deal was with that, but that was the last standard Assassin's Creed game. And then they had the RPG ones came out with Origins, which was basically kind of a knockoff of the Bethesda games. If you look at it, like they took everything that people liked from the Bethesda games and moved it into their Assassin's Creed game, and it worked. Did you ever play Origins or Odyssey or Valhalla?
Just a little bit, but not enough to endear me to the actual series, getting back into the series.
Yeah. So it worked, but then what happens when you kind of beat that horse to death? Like Odyssey was great. I got really burnt out on Valhalla because they went over to a system of having to stay online all the time, where like if you didn't have an internet connection, you could not save your game. So if you were playing, say, for like 8 hours and the internet's shut off, all that progress is gone. Which happened to me, more than a couple times. So there have been a lot of hits and a lot of misses in the Assassin's Creed franchise, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I don't know, there have been some story elements that have been good, and they kind of did the world was going to end in 2012 thing with the Lost Civilization, or I forget what they call their species that allegedly created the human race, but a lot of their lore is kind of all over the place. So I don't know. It would be a good time, I guess, with this next one to kind of tie up a lot of loose ends, or maybe just reboot would be a good idea too.
We'll see what happens, my friend, but we're looking forward to seeing Assassin's Creed Shadows, and if it's going to be the game that gets people back into the Assassin's Creed series. Please let us know your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, there's still much more to talk about on today's show. Speaking of video games, this week, my friend, on the Xbox, when I'm talking about this, I'm going to get agitated.
Or else hear it.
Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade 2 is coming out this week. The reviews, you don't know, they're going to drop just before the game drops. I think on Tuesday, it's going to drop just before then. I think maybe about 24 hours, but still, there is no advance word on it. The fact is that there's no advance word from Xbox this game even exists to the casual audience out there. If you're a gamer, you know it's coming this week. But if you don't, if you're just a casual player, you have no idea one of the best looking games ever created for the marketplace is coming out this week, which again perpetuates my anger with Xbox. And while we'll talk about Xbox with Call of Duty here in a second, I want to hear your thoughts on your anticipation and your disappointment when it comes to Hellblade 2, Senua's Sacrifice.
Definitely took forever to come out. And yeah, there have been zero to few.
And the best part about it is coming at a cheaper price. It's not coming out at $70 price tag. It's coming out $20 or $30 cheaper. It is a shorter game, but still, it should be something you'd want to promote, isn't it?
Yeah, you'd think. I mean, Xbox was kind of celebrating their acquisition of Ninja Theory, and Ninja Theory, like, they don't make other games anymore. They just make they've been working on this Hellblade game, and that's the only thing that they've been working on for the past 3 years, I think. So it does not make any sense that they wouldn't be keeping this sort of secret. So I don't know, man. Like the fact that there are no reviews out for it yet tells me one of two things. Either they're trying to avoid any possible bad publicity, or they know that the game is bad. And
it was just a shame for a game that looks that good.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. I really don't know. I hadn't actually thought about that. I just had preloaded it into my Xbox tonight, so it's still pre-installing. But yeah, I hadn't even considered that, because usually there's like banners up on the Xbox, not marketplace, but when you turn on your Xbox and you see the Xbox home screen or whatever, there's like banners for popular games coming out. And even on the internet, like being just farting around on the computer, I haven't seen any banners or advertisements for it at all. So that's a great question. I hadn't even thought about that. So yeah, I don't know. Do they have confidence in this? Are they trying to avoid?
Evidently not.
Yeah. Like, are they trying to avoid bad publicity? Like, are they really flailing that much? It is kind of worrisome, especially in the wake of all this stuff going on. Are we going to see Hellblade drop and then 6 months from now Ninja Theory is shut down?
Exactly. That's what I'm worried about as well. Another great video game maker, and that will be something that we'll see most likely if that's the case, that doesn't perform up to standards, which would be a shame, because again, for whatever the narrative is, whatever the actual critical reception is, no one can take away how trending, how just the graphics, just the look, just the feel, the movement, how cutting edge it is, Josh.
Yeah,
no one can take that away. And to have a studio be closed like that can do that kind of work would be absolutely terrible.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Hellblade 1 was revolutionary. And I would hate to see something bad happen to. No, sorry. I'd hate to see Ninja Theory get shut down because of whatever's going on. So, but that being said, though, I think that if Ninja Theory is shut down, if the game doesn't do well, doesn't perform well, Ninja Theory is shut down, I think that speaks to a bigger problem. And I think that problem is going to be Microsoft, because as we've seen, Ninja Theory is always putting out like really, really high quality games. But the difference between this game and the last game is that this is the first game that they're releasing under the tutelage of Microsoft. So there's a lot riding on this. If this game comes out and it's not good, I don't think people are going to so much point their fingers at Ninja Theory. I think they're going to point their fingers at Microsoft, which seems to be a trending thing right now.
Well, we'll find out what's going to go on with Hellblade 2, Senua's Sacrifice as it comes out this week. Melinda and I will report more on this on the Friday show about the reception of it and about the initial reactions. I will actually reboot my Xbox Games Pass this week to go ahead and give it a shot. Give me a little bit on it. The first one wasn't exactly great for me, even though it looked so beautiful and obviously sounded so great. You enjoyed it, I think, a little bit more than I did on the first. So we'll see what happens though with Hellblade 2. Interesting though that what I don't know, just whatever Xbox doing, it's just very nonsensical to me because the way that they go have not yet pitched out there how wonderful and how economically viable Xbox Games Pass is, with another AAA game coming this week to it, part of the service of the $15-16 a month that you're paying. Absolutely mind-boggling that they don't advertise this more, Josh.
No, and it's hard too for these studios that have been purchased from Microsoft, because by now, a company like Ninja Theory would have sent a bunch of copies out for review. They would have put a bunch of advertisements, up on people's websites and out into the world. And now their hands are tied when it comes to stuff like that, because everything has to be approved by Microsoft.
And just weird how they've dealt with it. I would have promoted it more. I would have promoted the Series X more, because you've been able to sell it at a lower cost than your main competitor. Just absolutely just cannot understand what has gone on with Microsoft, and they only have themselves to blame when you hear reports that PS5 is out shipping them. Even in a down generation for PlayStation 5, they're still out shipping PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 is over Xbox Series X or S by 5-1 margin. So you get what you get on that. But before we head to the break, CoD Black Ops 6, the latest rumor by Wall Street Journal has Black Ops 6 coming day and date, part of Games Pass. Is that a big win for Xbox if it does?
Maybe. Do people? I know we've talked about this before, but is Call of Duty still like a top-selling game?
It is.
Okay, then yeah. I mean, I imagine it will be, unless it's riddled with bugs, in which case you're going to hear people saying, "Oh, Microsoft, look what you did! If only it's released on Sony or on PlayStation." It's hard to say, man. But yeah, I mean, if this is the one game that people buy each year, then I think it could increase console sales, and it could be create some major momentum for the service that is Games Pass.
So we'll see if it happens, but it is, of course, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for watching, listening, and Josh Peterson. Please let us know your thoughts on Xbox with Hellblade 2 and Call of Duty possibly coming with its next installment on Games Pass. Please let us know your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, there's still much more to talk about on today's program. It is, of course, Gerald Glassford, along with, of course, Josh Peterson from his great site, happyhoardercollectibles.com. Do want to go ahead and mention, though, to you, my friend, since you are a major fan of the X-Men series, X-Men 97 just completed its first season to great acclaim. A lot of people are very happy, but the most important people that are happy are people in your age group that grew up on X-Men in the 1990s when it was an afternoon show on Fox. Your thoughts, my friend, as X-Men 97 seems to be a big hit for Disney Plus, with Disney Plus getting this Bluey Shogun. Things are starting to turn around just a little bit for Disney Plus when things seem to look dire with the failure of Secret Invasion.
Yeah, I don't so much think that it is like a oversaturation of content as much as it is not putting out the right content. And I think that that's a lesson that Disney seems to be learning, hopefully, and or putting out quality over quantity. And it sounds like X-Men 97. I've only seen a few episodes of it. I haven't had a chance to finish it yet, but everyone I've talked to, all people that my associates, friends, things like that, they all really, really have enjoyed the series. And even the episodes that I've watched, has taken me back to that Saturday morning when I would wake up and get a bowl of cereal and just sit on the couch and watch cartoons like those X-Men, and then Power Rangers, and Spider-Man was on there too. So yeah, I've enjoyed it, and I think it was the right move for Disney to bring something like that back. So it makes me wonder, like, will you think we'll see a return of the 97 Spider-Man too?
We'll see. Again, they do have the rights to that to show on Disney Plus. I believe that they can do that on their own outlet. It's not doesn't have to
Yeah,
be Sony or Netflix related on that one.
because I know he was in one of the episodes of X-Men 97.
Yes.
The original voice actor did his voice also.
Yes. So I believe they are able to go ahead and do that with their limited, obviously, what they can do, what they can't do, what they can promote, not promote on the Disney platform when it comes to Spider-Man. So yeah, that is a possibility. I do know that since the showrunner, who is largely getting a big chunk of the credit for season one, quit/fired over some allegations behind the scenes just before season one dropped. Who knows if it's going to continue to stay good going forward, but at least, my friend, it got off to a good start.
Yeah, and you know what concerns me from this point forward though is that Disney, much like everything else, they're going to see like, oh, hey, this did really well. It sold really well. Audiences really like this. How can we get in and make more money off of it? And that's going to kind of ruin what the show has become.
I agree, my friend. So we'll see what happens with the future of X-Men 97. But let me ask you this: Marvel animation as a whole, I liked the What If, but nobody saw the What If. Let's just put it out there. Okay.
Yeah, well, they don't necessarily like not advertise it, but like show it being important in the MCU canon. And I think that that's why a lot of people have skipped out on it.
Which is a shame because it's something that I think that uh, maybe that it's going to be something that maybe that they have to address because they do have good animation.
Hmm.
But the problem is, like you said, they don't promote it as well as they should. They promote their Star Wars end of it better, which is a shame because there's a lot of good stuff on the Marvel end as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Star Wars is questionable right now too, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good things out there, but Disney does not. I don't know. They don't create things that people actually want to watch, and the things that people actually want to watch, they ruin them by trying to sell more T-shirts and action figures. So there's definitely a balance that needs to be found by Disney for if the future of Disney Plus is going to be successful. But they've put out some good things so far.
We'll see what happens, but it is, of course, the X-Men 97 season one doing so well. And we're just happy to go ahead and have something again like that, especially for everyone who in the 90s who remembers so fondly that it is a faithful adaptation to what we're seeing with the Marvel animated universe. Again, What If? I don't know if they'll continue that because it wasn't very well rated, but to me, I thought it was very effective and well done. But we'll see what happens. A Spider-Man show, perhaps? You never know. That's probably their
I
next.
I would love that. Do you remember Spider-Man? It was 2099 that they had. It was they did a one season of it on Fox Kids. I think it ran for like 6 episodes and they never went back to it. Like there's a lot of properties that I would like to see them go back and explore. Because remember, they had the animated Iron Man, there's an animated Fantastic Four. Like there's a lot of things that could garner some viewers, especially viewers in my age bracket.
So we'll see what happens, but it is, of course, Marvel Animation. Please let us know your thoughts if this is something that you could go ahead and get back into with X-Men 97 after the success there. And also, as well, what you're seeing with, of course, the animated studios from What If. And then, of course, on the Star Wars side as well, Disney Animation is getting a boost from X-Men 97. Your thoughts, Pop Culture Cosmos at yahoo.com. Well, you texted me earlier this week in regards to something of a revival that's going to be taking place. We all heard about the Harry Potter being revived, that brand being revived, TV show on the way from Warner Brothers. But the other thing that was revived, as far as the major IP from the early 2000s that I think that you were interested in, was the Lord of the Rings. And I understand that there's an animated feature that's coming in the not too distant future, but the one live action feature that they talked about coming within the next couple years is a return to the Lord of the Rings, but a return to the world of Gollum and a hunt for Gollum. Your thoughts on this, my friend? You had some very distinct thoughts to me that you said in regards to this. I agreed with you wholeheartedly because a return to the world of Gollum may not necessarily lead to good things at the box office.
I don't think so because okay, so Embracer, remember they bought Lord of the Rings. We're like, what's going to happen with this? It turns out, Warner Brothers still owns certain parts of that franchise. I think it's
Whatever's in the movies.
The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, like they still had rights to that. But I guess Embracer now has a partnership with Warner Brothers and New Line Media to produce, all these different films coming out. Anyways, it was messy, so it was silence for a while. We were wondering like what was going on, and then lo and behold, last week they announced there's going to be not last week, the week before, they're returning to the Lord of the Rings world with a movie titled The Hunt for Gollum, and this takes place in between The Hobbit and The Fellowship of the Ring. I think yes, it does. So I don't know, and like looking at it, the video game, the Gollum video game bombed, right? People hated it, and so they're like, oh, naturally, I think we should do a movie about Gollum. But you're trying to, much like Star Wars, you're trying to create interest in this franchise for future generations. So why would you start with a movie about Gollum?
I couldn't ask. I couldn't tell you because really, after, like you said, the lack of interest and the horrible reviews for the Gollum video game that came out last year, it would not be in their wisest interest to go back to that because Gollum is a cute side character, but as a main part of the Lord of the Rings series, it's just, as we've seen, just does not work out.
Right. So in the Lord of the Rings lore, there's a few parties searching for Gollum. You have Aragorn, and you have Gandalf, and you have Sauron is looking for
Sauron,
him.
yes, who you will see in the Amazon series later this year.
Yes. Yeah, I want to talk about that in
Rings
a
of
minute.
Power season 2, which dropped
Yes.
also this past week.
So back to the Gollum movie. I don't understand like why. Like Gollum had his time, but ultimately, and he's an iconic character, but ultimately his time came to an end. So why would you go back and revisit that character and not go on to not start somewhere fresh, maybe in the first era, or something post Lord of the Rings, or just like a new time somewhere that has not been done in the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit already.
But Andy Serkis has decided to not only direct but reprise his role as Gollum, so at least you'll get an authentic voice on it, my friend.
Yeah, that's true. I don't. This is not a move that I would have made. But what
No.
do I know?
The War for the Rohirrim, that sounds, which is the animated feature, that I would have loved as the live action.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that would be really cool. I mean, but looking at it or reading about it, it sounds like it would have been just a movie on a massive scope. So that animation might have been a more a cheaper way to go about it. But also, I think that was in production long before the the Warner Brothers Time Warner merge. Rings of Power season 2, though, they dropped a trailer for that. What are your thoughts on that? I know that we were kind of split about the Rings of Power. I enjoyed it because
I thought it was okay.
Okay, all right. So I mean, are you excited going into season 2?
Not excited for it, but I thought it was okay. I just thought it was so funny now, though. Again, as I mentioned to Melinda, the same day that the opening trailer, debut trailer, came out for the Rings of Power, what comes out about an hour later? For Max, House of the Dragon.
Oh, that's
Two.
right.
A
Yeah.
little petty, perhaps?
Mhm.
Hmm?
You must choose one fantasy property to follow.
Yes. So it's
Yeah.
crazy. Now, at least they're not running concurrently. House of the Dragon is going to run first, season 2, and then about a couple months later in August, then you get your Lord of the Rings. But still, I thought it was a very petty move because House of the Dragons has clearly tried to, you know, separate itself and distance itself as the better of the two series.
Mm.
And it just seems like, yeah, I understand that Amazon spent a ton of money on it, but still it just seemed kind of petty. You know what I mean? Just a little bit of pettiness
Oh,
there.
absolutely. But you know, it's funny with the if I remember the way the contracts were drawn out for the Lord of the Rings properties, that Amazon is not allowed to, because they don't want anybody stepping on anybody's toes. So they're not allowed to reference things that happen in The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, but they're also not allowed to like ruin characters that have been established in Lord of the Rings. So like with Lady Galadriel, they're not allowed to do anything in their scripts that would I don't know, contradict who she is in the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies. So I think there's not any fear of toes being stepped on, but yeah, there definitely is a little butting of heads there for sure.
But we'll see. Both are coming out. What we talked about June next month for House of the Dragon and August for Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. So we'll see what happens. But again, it's just very funny how these things play itself out. But Lord of the Rings is still alive and well, which obviously makes us happy. Would we map it out the way that they're doing it? Not quite, but still, it's
Yeah.
there. So.
Hmm.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts out there on Lord of the Rings, the upcoming Gollum film? Then you also have the Rings of Power. What are your thoughts out there and the animated feature that's coming up as well, War for the Rohirrim? Which are you excited for? Are you excited for all of them? Please let us know. Probably more video games coming up in the world of Lord of the Rings too. So please let us know your thoughts on the Lord of the Rings and the fact that there's still more on the way. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, there's still a little bit more to talk about on today's program. If debuted at the box office domestically this past weekend, and I don't know, my friend, I'm getting concerned. You know why I'm getting concerned?
Why is that?
Okay, I'm saying the Planet of the Apes did not go under expectations. It met them and exceed them just by a little bit. So I'll give it a pass. But for the most part, we are seeing a lot of these movies this year coming out not following a good trend. As If came out and unfortunately fell under expectations with $35 million domestically, $55 million worldwide. It's not a great start for a movie that cost $120 million for a brand new property. So it's
It's
something that's not really a good start for If.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know like what the average Joe thinks of it, because I've been seeing a lot of the reviews online. I think IGN gave it a 4, and there's a couple others that were beneath 5 on that. But um, I'd be curious to know like what the common person thinks of it, because I know people still, because of how expensive movies are, people rely heavily on these review sites to tell them whether or not they should go watch these movies, which you know how I feel about that. But yeah, I don't know. It is this going to be one that when it hits streaming, it's going to end up garnering a lot of views, or is it just going to be one of those movies that, all right, guys, well we tried, on to the next thing.
Exactly. That's the question. And I suppose the question to Melinda, which I will close to you now, was it a good move for John Krasinski, who created this film? And it sounds like he made The Quiet Places, made them a financial success, and then said, you know what, I'm going to executive produce the next one, the prequel. I'm going to just step away from it. And I want to go ahead and make the movie I really want to make and pitch the idea of If as a creative thing that he wanted to go ahead and do and create this all new children's IP that hopefully will lead to more and more and more. And unfortunately, it has not been the case. But do you think it was a wise move for him to step away from the Quiet Place franchise as far as no longer being the director?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like musicians don't like to make the same albums over and over again. Directors don't like to do the same films over and over again. It just
Unless you're
comes
George Miller, as we'll talk about here.
unless you're George Miller or yeah, who George Lucas pretty much made the same films over and over again
Mhm.
too. But yeah, it's I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, it seems like it would be an inevitable move to just be like, oh hey, let me make something my kids would watch, or let me write a book my kids would read. And it's kind of the natural progression of things. I think that was his let me do something for my kids era, and we'll see. And if it didn't pay off, it didn't pay off. But it just surprises me that it did as poorly as it did. Or maybe parents just aren't taking their kids to the movies anymore. It's hard to really say what the issue is, because looking at Kung Fu Panda did amazing, but that's a movie that like older adults and kids like to watch. So
Because there's been 4 of them already.
yeah, but I mean, going back and looking at like Paw Patrol, right, is a movie that's specifically geared for kids. That didn't quite make a ton of money. So maybe families just aren't taking their kids to the movies, or aren't doing it yet, and are waiting for that to hit streaming. I don't know, man. It's hard to say. It's hard to blame it on one thing or the other. Especially since I haven't seen it.
Well, we'll see what happens with If. Again, you could be right. It could be one of those things that it hits streaming and then takes off from there. We'll see. But again, high price tag for it, $120 million to make. So we'll see if it actually does find some life like some children's movies have. They found legs eventually, like Migration. Migration didn't start out too well. And although it never really did blockbusters, it stayed around in the box office for months afterwards. So we'll see if this has legs or not, but it is If at the box office, slightly disappointing at the box office, and we'll see. But I'm seeing an overall trend of more movies than not hitting their marks when it comes to what the expectations financially are them. So there is some concern, my friend, out there for it, but we'll find out what goes on here in the coming weeks. We've got a major duo of movies coming up. Your thoughts in advance on Mad Max Furiosa and the Garfield movie meeting up head to head on Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, actually, like the
Will
girl.
Garfield translate to a 2024 younger audience?
No, it won't. I mean, there's literally nothing out there for it. There's no toys. There's no merchandise. There's no not even any advertising for this movie. I don't I don't think that it's going to be so. It's going to be something that adults might take their kids to see, but it's not going to be something that kids are going to wake up in the morning and be like, "Yeah, mom and dad, let's go watch Garfield." It's a property that's kind of lost its relevance, and I don't know how you would get something like that back.
Kind of concerning. And then, of course, Mad Max Furiosa. I know you got to be excited about that because Mad Max Fury Road, considered one of the best movies of the 2010s. And this is I guess, the prequel to that. So we'll see what happens. But it has also garnered strong reviews. A 10 from IGN on Mad Max Furiosa.
It's not owned by Sony, is it?
No, I don't think so.
I was just that was a
That's your
IGN
B
being
movie.
a Sony fanboy joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I really liked Mad Max Fury Road, and Furiosa is she's not a character I'd be like, "Oh, I wish I want to see like where she came from," but uh I am really excited to watch this movie because these Mad Max films, especially like the Fury Road, was like a really artsy looking film, and it was beautifully filmed. Those color palettes, man, really great. And so I would gladly go back to this world and see
Cars and Sand.
cars and sand. And they had like little like what do you call it, like paint balls or whatever that. Remember they and like the blues and the greens and stuff would come out. So yes, I'm gonna go watch this movie.
Okay, fair enough. It does look good. I will give it that. I don't know if it'll match up to Dune Part 2 as of yet, but we'll wait and see. I think I might actually get a chance to see it before the month is up, but we'll see. Again, it is Mad Max Furiosa coming out this weekend. I know that Melinda and I will talk about more about it on Friday, but we want to hear your thoughts. If you're heading out next weekend for Memorial Day weekend on Mad Max Furiosa or Garfield, as I told Melinda, I just thought when it came to Garfield, I really thought Chris Pratt should play the part of John. Chris Pratt should be more like the John part. I understand you don't want Bill Murray in the role of Garfield again, but I thought it would just be someone different because it just doesn't seem like a perfect fit.
Yeah, Garfield
He's
talks.
more of the John to me.
He's got more energy. Yeah, I agree.
So, what are your thoughts out there on the Garfield movie versus Mad Max Furiosa? Please let us know your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. My friend, it's been a great episode, but before we head on out, a couple things. Bridgerton season 3. Didn't think we would leave this one. I know that Melinda and I couldn't get to it on the last one, and maybe I'll hit her up on Friday if she's actually caught it. But Bridgerton season 3, it is still one of the most popular shows in the history of Netflix. We talked about it on season 1, where it was like, okay, the scandalous, romantic, sexual thing that was going on as far as this actual series was absolutely resonating with audiences. I know not all these same actors from season 1 are there now. It's almost like a completely different show in many ways by season 3, but still the heat always gets turned up and always gets turned up in Bridgerton, and season 3 seems to be no less turning up right now for Netflix.
So Bridgerton, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that like a Downtown Abbey for like younger people?
Yes, it deals with the Victorian era, and yes, all the all the good stuff as far as it's concerned, all the action per se, but husbands looking for wives, wives looking for husbands, lovers looking for lovers, etc., etc., etc. So
Yeah. I've heard good things about Bridgerton from people. It's not something I would go out of my way to watch, but yeah, I mean Netflix, it's on Netflix, right?
yes,
Yeah, so Netflix seems to be great at creating that type of content though, like things that they're like, oh, this could be good or it couldn't be good, and they put this out and apparently people like it because I've seen novels at Barnes and Noble. I've even seen a couple like graphic novels of Bridgerton. So definitely they're doing something right. Have you watched any of it?
periodically, just because I see my wife checking it out, which
Mhm.
I think it caters to a female audience, and more power to him because it is something that it does have a loyal audience with, and you know what, it is earning all the talk for that series. And when you have a channel or a network or a platform with 260 million plus subscribers, Josh,
Mhm.
it just takes something to get the world talking. And when it comes to Netflix, when they hit on something, it becomes that event on a world stage that really so many other shows would strive and love to have.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and like I said, they're good at putting that type of content out because, like, look at Stranger Things, right? Like, it started out as like, oh, will people watch this? Maybe, maybe not. But now it's become a cultural phenomenon.
So we want to hear your thoughts. Are you excited about checking out, or have you checked out Bridgerton season 3? Have you already Netflixed and chilled
Chilled.
to Bridgerton season 3? If you already binge watched it, please let us know your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, before we head on out, I wanted to go ahead and wish a happy birthday. I'm very sad that I could not stop by and check out the Fathom event showing of the 65th anniversary of North by Northwest, one of my all-time favorite movies, as you will see on my article that's on the front page of popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. And I will tell you again the reason why I think this movie is so important to history. I understand Alfred Hitchcock's movies, Rear Window. I understand that Psycho is considered one of the greatest movies of all time. I understand his long line of films, but North by Northwest needs to be in that upper echelon of his films, of his works, because to me, it exemplifies and actually originates the big budget blockbuster action thriller that we see on a regular basis. Like, for instance, The Fall Guy, which came out a couple weeks ago. Its lineage, as far as a film you could make, does not only trace itself back to the 1980 series, The Fall Guy, but the core of what that action film is all about. It emanates back from all the way 65 years ago to North by Northwest. Your thoughts on North by Northwest? Again, it is one of the great classic films of all time. And again, to me, has originated and set the standard for what we've seen all these years later, all these decades later, with the live action thriller that we have today.
So would you almost go as far to say like it paved the way for a lot of like it inspired a lot of
Inspired, influenced, whatever you want to say about it. Yes.
Yeah. So the first time I watched it, it didn't hit me as hard like that, because I had been spoiled and I grew up in a time when, movies looked a little bit better and newer and fresher. But, as an adult, I look back on it and I do appreciate it. I always thought that Alfred Hitchcock was a genius, despite what, people said about him behind the scenes. I always thought that the man did amazing things. And, North by Northwest is definitely one of his biggest achievements, especially considering that there weren't a lot of well scripted action movies that came out at that time. I think how close was that to the release of Dr. No?
That's a good question. I think it came out before Dr. No, but it's within 10 years.
Okay, so I mean, it created, I guess you could go as far as to say like it created it was a pioneer of its genre.
Yes, I think it is. I absolutely think it is. I think it, again, a lot of these big budget action thrillers, have a debt to pay and a debt to thank for what North by Northwest set up.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Is this something that you would want to see a remake of, or do you think
Why
that's
not?
better off left alone?
It's better off left alone, but my gosh, if you're going to do it, why not? Why not?
Yeah,
I can see
why
it.
not?
Why not? They're
Yeah.
remaking everything now. At this point, why put up a fight?
Or they could even go the route of Gone in 60 Seconds, right? Because the original Gone in 60 Seconds and the one with Nicolas Cage, the one with Nicolas Cage is a sequel to the original one, but they were made like what 20, 30 years apart. So I mean, they could even do, a sequel to North by Northwest and reinvigorate that property a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think it has earned its place in the history of film for sure.
So, what are your thoughts on North by Northwest hitting 65? I'm going to try and see if I can catch it here on the telly here later this evening. But tell us your thoughts on North by Northwest hitting 65. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, Mr. HappyHoarderCollectibles.com and Happy Hoarder Collectibles, wherever you get your social media. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
Yeah, so apparently if you own a sealed copy of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade for PS5, it was only released on PS5, but the game, a sealed copy, is now worth about $180. That's absolutely insane because I guess they've completely stopped making the game, so it's, I guess, retired in a way. So if you own a copy of the game, even like an open box copy, it's still worth quite a bit. So you make sure you keep an eye on that old price charting, especially as physical media production is going down, the value of this stuff is going to start to go up, up, up. I mean, even for things that were as common as, Halo 1 on the Xbox or Gears of War, I think are even going to start to hold value here. So keep an eye on your price charting for your video game collectors out there.
So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great